Thank you. So good afternoon. My name is Alexandre Gruber. I'm the Regional Advisor of Health Technology Management, Pan American Health Organization. It's a pleasure to start this series of webinars on health technology management for the Caribbean. Today, our session will be moderated by Begonha Sagastui, my colleague. And thank you very much, Begonha, for accepting the invitation to moderate this session. Begonha is the sub-regional focal point for health technologies, the Caribbean, for the Caribbean countries. And she'll gladly accept to, and thank you very much for being the chair in this session. But before I pass to Begonha, I will ask Analia Porras. Analia Porras is the unit chief of Medicines and Health Technologies, the Pan American Health Organization. Thank you very much, Analia, for being with us today. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alexandre, and good afternoon, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be with you today. And before I start, congratulations to my colleagues for organizing this seminar, which is the first webinar of a new series that we are planning to offer to you on healthcare technology management in the Caribbean. These webinars, as I said, it's a part of a wider cooperation strategy for strengthening health technology management capacities in the sub-region, and more specifically in Caribbean countries. With the support of the University of Vermont, to which we are very, very grateful. We have our WHO PAHO Collaborating Center in Health Technology Management of University of Vermont with us. And we have held a series of activities, especially 2 courses on the PAHO Virtual Campus of Public Health, one on introduction of biomedical technology and the other one on healthcare technology planning and management that had more than 300 participants in both English and Spanish. And we also soon will offer the same courses in Portuguese and French. We also have had activities specifically designed for the Caribbean countries. In March 2019, for example, we held a health technology management workshop here in Washington, D.C., although here we are in our houses, we're still mostly in Washington, with 16 delegates from 14 Caribbean countries to discuss policy and planning, acquisition and deployment, and maintenance and support of medical devices. On that occasion, we launched the Caribbean Countries Health Technology Planning and Management Community of Practice at the Regional Platform on Access and Innovation for Health, or PRAISE, that enables you sharing experience and exchange of information among its members. This year, we started organizing country-specific workshops to address particular issues of health technology management that address needs in the context of each of the specific countries. The first workshop was held this week with Trinidad and Tobago, with great participations on results, so congratulations. The topic of today's webinar, I think it's particularly relevant. It's integrated approach to health technologies, regulation, health technology assessment, and health technologies management. Why are we think this is so relevant, and why we'd like to launch this series with the integrated approach. We think it's very important when we are making health policy regarding health technologies to consider it throughout the life cycle of the product, from the research and development to the registration and market authorization of the technology and introduction into the market, through the assessment and decision if you need to incorporate that particular health technology in your health system and benefit package, and of course for price negotiation according to the value that that technology provides. Also, the management, rational use, and maintenance, as much as disposal and disinvestment, are particular areas that are not always considered in the broader spectrum of health policy for health technologies. And we would like to introduce these topics today. I think for medical devices, and specifically more for some of the medical equipment that you use during the during the within your health systems and services, is particularly important to consider all these issues that I was just mentioned. So medical equipment requires that best practice system to be effectively plan, assess, acquire, deploy, train, ensure safety, maintain, and finally dispose of the technology. I think if we launch the seminars with that framework, we probably will be able to gain a lot of capacities, a lot of information, and most of all, strengthen the capacities in all our countries to better manage these technologies that are at the same time so important, but they are so costly, and that today might pose so many hurdles for the right approach to access and a universal health in our countries. So without any more, I would like to thank you, wish you the best in this seminar, and congratulate again the team for the organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Analia, for those opening remarks. And thank you, Alexandre, for inviting me to moderate this session. I'm very excited to be here. And let me welcome again everyone to this first webinar of the series, Healthcare Technology Management in the Caribbean. As it was already mentioned, my name is Begonia Sagastri. I'm the consultant for medicines and other health technologies at the PAHO Sub-Regional Office for the Caribbean, and I will be moderating this session. Today, we're going to be exploring and discussing the integrated approach to health technologies, just as Analia mentioned. And we're going to start with an interactive exercise where you all are going to be asked to answer some questions. After this exercise, we're going to have a presentation made by our keynote speaker. And finally, we're going to end with a short presentation on PAHO Health Technology Management Community of Practice and a 30-minute session for questions and answers. You're kind of, well, we're going to pose, you can pose your questions and we're going to be looking out for them. So please do not be shy, share them with us. And without further delay, I'm going to start this session. So for that, I'm very pleased to introduce Francisco Cacabo, which many of you probably already know. He's a PAHO consultant on health technology assessment, and he's going to be guiding us in this initial exercise. So dear Francisco, welcome, the floor is yours. You are muted. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Begonia. Thanks, everybody. So as Begonia said, I will be guiding regarding the, I'm going to share my screen. Just a second. There. Regarding the interactive question session. So everybody to join, we have two ways to join. Maybe the easiest one is you can scan with your cell phones the code we're seeing here, this box, this white box we're seeing here, just with your cell phone cam, you point at it and a small window will pop up or on the top, and just click on it. Another option, in your computer or in your browser, you can go to slido.com and put the code. When you will find a small window asking for a code, this code we have here, HTM Caribbean. So while you do that, I'm going to make brief introductions of the questions we're going to have. Here on the left, you still have the code to scan it. You can still scan it from there with your phones, or also the code you need to enter in slido.com. So we have some questions. The first one, well, all of them are to know the audience. The first one are, what country are you working from? There you will have to type in your country. Then it's what type of institution are you currently working in? What is your educational background? Those are multiple choice. You will have to pick. And then we have some questions regarding your background knowledge that look quite the same, but they are not exactly the same. So what is your background knowledge in terms of regulation of health technologies? What is your background knowledge in terms of health technology assessment, HTA? And your background knowledge in terms of health technology management, HTM. And then the last one, it will probably take you a few more seconds. So what's your health healthcare technology management area is the biggest challenge for your country? There are some options there. You take some moments and you pick one. So now we go directly to the survey. Sorry, there we are. So what country are you working from? We are okay. We have 10 answers by now. So mostly from Trinidad and Tobago. Most people are from Trinidad and Tobago. This is probably related to the workshop we had on Tuesday, which, as Anaria mentioned, was very, very successful, good results, and a lot of excitement. And it shows here. So we already have 17 responses, quite a good number. 20 now, so it's mostly from Trinidad and Tobago. We have some from Mexico, Dominica, St. Lucia, Belize, also Jamaica, CARICOM, Anguilla, all United States, probably some of our team in PAHO, St. Lucia, Anguilla. We're gonna wait a couple more seconds because as not, in this case, you need to answer all the questions to have them here. So it probably, this first questions takes a little longer, and the next one will be much faster. I don't know how many participants do we have, but I believe we can take 70, okay, 50, 60 participants. So we can wait a couple more, maybe one more minute or a bit more until we get some more responses from this one, although it looks quite stable, even if we get more responses. So we wait a few more seconds because we are more or less 50% of participation answering. So I'm saying again, for everybody to participate, you can scan this code here on the left with your cell phone. You open the camera and scan it. Okay, well, we are moving to the second question because it looks pretty stable. Trinidad and Tobago, most participants are from Trinidad and Tobago, Mexico, Belize, well, Trinidad, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Costa Rica, Suriname, Haiti, CARICOM, United States, Anguilla, Grenada, Costa Rica. Okay, good representation from many countries within the Caribbean, with a lot of representation from Trinidad and Tobago. Let's move to the next one. Okay, what type of institution are you currently working in? So hospital, 38%, most of participants, well, the biggest minority is from hospitals, 38%, ministries of health, 24%. We have 29 answers by now. PAHO, 21%. We have a lot of our focal points here as well. Thanks for joining. Other, 14%. Non-governmental organization, 3%. And academic institutions, I'm sorry, but this doesn't allow me to see the percentage, but you may be seeing it. I have a bar down here, that's why, I'm sorry. I don't know if we shall wait a few more seconds, but I believe the number is pretty stable here. We have 29 participations. If you couldn't put your answer here, you can put it in the chat as well. What is your educational background? Biomedical engineering, 38% are biomedical engineers. Physician, paramedic, nurse, 24%. Pharmacists, biochemists, 70%. Other, 14%. And other engineers that are not biomedical engineers, 7%. And we don't have any management, administrative, medical, or research academic. Okay, a few more, and biomedical engineer gets a bigger percentage. Okay, but it doesn't, okay, it keeps changing, biomedical engineering, but it more or less, we have the same. Let's move to the next one. What is your background knowledge in terms of regulation of health technologies? Intermediate, 47%, almost 50% have some knowledge, intermediate knowledge, quite some knowledge of regulation of health technologies. That is good to know. Basic knowledge, 39%, and advanced, we have around almost 10% of advanced knowledge of regulation of health technologies. And 3% no background knowledge. Okay, good. Okay, intermediate, we have more. We're getting more answers. That is really good. So I'm saying again, for those that may have joined later, you can use your camera and scan the code here on the left. Also, you can join at slido.com and put this HTM Caribbean. Next question, what is your background knowledge in terms of health technology assessment, HTA? Intermediate, 50%. Well, that's very good to know. Half of the audience has intermediate knowledge of HTA, basic 35%, and advanced 9%, and 6% no background knowledge. It just changed a bit, but it's pretty much the same or very similar to what we had for regulation. Then HTM, healthcare technology management, and it's a bit different because we have a higher percentage of advanced, 21%. Well, it makes total sense since this is a HTM webinar series and this is the first one, so we have a higher percentage of people with advanced knowledge, background knowledge, 26% basic and 44 intermediate. Okay, it changed a bit, but not much. Well, and this is probably one of the most important questions, and it would probably be useful to know and keep it in mind for the Q&A and for the debate if you want to ask something about this, and also if you want to start making questions on the chat, we can at the end answer them all together. But what healthcare technology management area is the biggest challenge for your country? Quality and sustainability of acquisitions seems like the most important, with 23%, quality and sustainability of acquisitions. Recognition of HTM and HTM professionals, 70%. With the same percentage, HTM and technical education training, also very related. Preventative maintenance and repair parts, 70%. Computerized medical equipment management system, 9%. Equipment replacement planning and disposal, 9%. Utilization of donated equipment, 6%. And patient safety, 3%. Okay, it's good to know that patient safety doesn't seem like quite a challenge for most of the participants. So that is the last question. So I go back to you, Begoña.
Thank you very much, Francisco. And this is very useful to get to know each other. That not being able to be in the same room is always challenging. So I always find these exercises very enlightening to know who's in the room with us. So now I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Toby Clark. Professor Clark is the director of the PAHO WHO Collaborating Center for Health Technology Management at the Technical Services Partnership of the University of Vermont, where he also serves as engineering supervisor. He has been on the faculty of Electrical and Biomedical Engineering and Biomedical and Health Sciences departments, where he has taught medical instrumentation and clinical engineering courses. Toby has worked in the biomedical engineering area for 49 years, and he's a very dear friend of PAHO and of the region. So, Professor Clark, we are delighted to have you here with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Begoña. It's great to be here, and thanks to everyone in the PAHO team for putting this together. This series is really an enjoyable thing for me to work on. It's great to see all the participants, many of which who have taken the virtual courses that have been offered through PAHO, and even some of our interns that have come from the Caribbean and worked at the University of Vermont. So without further ado, let me share my screen. I hope everyone can see this. So this is first in a series of healthcare technology management webinars for the Caribbean. It's focused on the Caribbean. The first one being kind of the overview, the integrated approach to healthcare technologies. And this includes regulation, Healthcare Technology Assessment, which is HTA, and HTM, Healthcare Technology Management. So first of all, let's look at the medical equipment life cycle. So the focus of these webinars is going to be primarily on medical equipment, also medical devices to a certain extent. And you can see the life cycle. It starts with an idea or market research that would start a research, more of a scientific research into product definition and product development through prototyping, testing. At that point, there in the US, and this differs between countries, there would be a submission to our Food and Drug Administration for regulatory approval of a particular product. You can see the color code on this life cycle. In the brown, those are the areas that are outside the healthcare system. These are all individually done by the various manufacturers. So they have total control over the first phase here. As we get into manufacture, marketing, and distribution, there is influence from regulatory groups, good manufacturing practices, marketing to ensure that the product is marketed as described in the regulatory guidance. And then we get to assessment. Now, many times assessment may occur either in conjunction with or before regulatory approval in other countries. As we move along below assessment in the bottom half of this cycle, we get into kind of the acquisition phase. It starts with planning, specification, evaluation, procurement, and deployment. So these are the first stages of healthcare technology management. The involvement by the biomedical engineering group, it varies according to country, according to practice. As we move along into commissioning, so this is when the device is first put into the healthcare system, training of clinical staff and maintenance staff, patient safety, maintenance, and finally decommissioning, which is the end of life of a technology. So briefly, that's the life cycle of medical equipment. We're going to start off with medical equipment assessment. Assessment has really a really key role in terms of the success of medical equipment in healthcare. So we're starting off with this particular topic. So what is healthcare technology assessment? It's basically systematic evaluation of properties, effects, and impacts on healthcare technology. So what we're talking about is new technology. This is something that is primarily new to a country in terms of PAHO definition. It could be something that is new to your health system. If you have a hospital that has, say, never had a nuclear medicine technology before, and you're looking at getting into that particular type of technology, there's an assessment process also. So the evaluations cover the benefits, efficacy, clinical and technical safety, very importantly, the need of the technology to serve the patient population, and the cost effectiveness. Outside of that, there's also social, ethical, and cultural and economic dimensions of an assessment. So these really look at beyond that towards coverage and reimbursement, pricing, clinical guidelines, protocols, and medical device regulation. So again, this may occur before the actual regulatory process in some countries. But basically, you want to have informed decision-making in the healthcare area. This is an important diagram from Alexander Lemgruber, which again emphasizes the importance of healthcare technology assessment and the effectiveness evaluation, economic, budget analysis, reporting, cultural, social acceptability, looking at that process to make a decision on those technologies and how they serve the population. So these coverage decisions are very important. they affect then the health benefit plans that are put in place for the country. Finally, we have the access and rational use, which is healthcare technology management, basically. There's a lot of little circles there, and these are the things that we're going to cover throughout the series for healthcare technology management. Down at the bottom, there's a kind of a feedback system, post-incorporation monitoring, post-marketing surveillance, marketing authorization. So this is kind of your feedback system into the HTA process. Finally, there's a term called disinvestment. Disinvestment is basically prior to decommissioning. Many health systems will disinvest of a technology, and thus the equipment will be decommissioned. So the strategy, basically get information from clinical research, qualify the research results, look at the economic and cultural aspects of the country, evaluate, what the training, cost of supplies, maintenance, all the costs associated with that technology, determine the cost benefit. This requires a significant investment. This, is done by the European Union, by Canada, by Brazil, Argentina, the large countries that have the capabilities to do that. For the Americas, there is an excellent organization called REDETSA, which is the Health Assessment Network of the Americas, and there's a link here. I believe that you'll be getting this presentation. And that allows a network to provide information to various countries that don't have that investment in a health technology assessment system. It's very important. So here's a list of the benefits of health technology assessment. I'm not going to go through all of them, but certainly it is a multidisciplinary approach to evaluating new technologies, the clinical outcomes, the support, the cost of ownership, reduction in various interventions that have to take place after the fact, which you don't want, surprises, reducing the risk, and also increasing the compliance with professional and regulatory guidelines. So there's many benefits of health technology assessment. There is a difference. Most health technology assessments that have been done in the past really focus on pharmaceuticals. I don't know what the percentage is, very high percentage of technology assessments that have been done in the past are pharmaceuticals. However, medical equipment systems are different. There's an interdependency of technologies where one technology may be interacting with another technology, either through a network or some other non-physical means. The devices, a lot of them are diagnostic. You don't find diagnostic pharmaceuticals for the most part. Training requirements and usability, those are two key issues for medical equipment. Maintenance is definitely something that has to be evaluated. It can be very costly. It can cost more than the equipment itself that was purchased. And the life cycle is different for medical equipment technology. Just a couple of quick assessment examples. I did notice that the assessment area wasn't one where there were advanced levels for the most part in the participants. So I'm glad that there's a few extra slides here on the topic. So an example of a macro assessment, USA, this is a rapid assessment related to COVID-19 where there was a streamlined effort to allow authorization of emergency use devices. An example would be ventilators. So certain ventilators, anesthesia gas machines used as ventilators, CPAP, except for modified like this device that is in the picture here. So this was a rapid assessment process that took place through the FDA, and it was reasonably successful, although the device on the right did have a recent recall. In terms of a micro assessment, so a micro assessment would be like a health system or a hospital. So this example is University of Vermont Medical Center in the USA, looking for an alternative to invasive ventilation, high flow nasal cannula versus a helmet ventilation system, again, focused on COVID. So the goal was to find the best non-invasive alternative for invasive ventilation. So the analysis, of course, we're concerned about the high use of oxygen. ECRI Institute is an international research group that had done an evaluation on the helmet systems, and there were some concerns. Also, a study in the Journal of American Medical Association didn't find a difference between the results of the high flow nasal cannula and the helmet system. So the decision was made to continue to use the high flow nasal cannula. This is just a quick example of a rapid assessment that was done for COVID on a micro basis. Okay, next topic is medical equipment regulation. So medical equipment regulation, first of all, the definition of regulation is basically a law, and it differs from a standard in that the standard is not a law unless it's adopted by an authority having jurisdiction, such as a government. So standards are generally minimum levels of performance. Accreditation, on the other hand, is a voluntary process, grants recognition to an organization that meets defined standards. Accreditation many times is voluntary. An example would be the Joint Commission or Joint Commission International accreditation of hospitals. In the US, we have regulatory agencies. Again, I mentioned the Food and Drug Administration. They have a subgroup called the Center for Devices and Radiological Health. And they're the ones that are focused on medical devices, medical equipment. And they basically have three levels of classification for devices. Class 1, general, it's basically paperwork submitted. Class 2 is performance standards. Those performance standards are typically for devices that are kind of older technology types that maybe have a different configuration. Whereas class 3 is new devices. Typically they are high-risk devices, things such as implantables, life support equipment, stair climbing wheelchairs, things of that nature, would have to go through a process where they actually prove their effectiveness. This is the only classification where the FDA actually approves the effectiveness of a device. The other ones are primarily paperwork and submission to standards that is done by the companies themselves. There's also post-market surveillance. Any deaths, serious injuries have to be reported to the FDA if they involve medical devices. And there are other organizations in the US, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the Federal Communications Commission, and CMS is the one that basically regulates hospitals. International standards organizations, it's the ISO, which is kind of a organization that covers all kinds of standards bodies. International Electrotechnical Commission, that's more focused on electronic, electrical, and related technologies, the main safety standards for medical electrical equipment, IEC 60601, for instance. So international regulatory networks, it's also important to look at this in terms of a network. International Medical Device Regulators Forum is a very important network that basically consists of many countries that have regulatory bodies. They get together, they try to basically make those regulations kind of harmonized, look at best practices for regulatory activity. PAHO has a National Regulatory Authorities Network also, annual exchange of experiences for each country. There was one this year, of course, virtual in Washington, and documents such as the regulation of medical devices in the context of COVID-19. So these are all important networks that are available. Now to medical equipment management, which appears there's a lot of individuals here who have experience in this. Basically, it's a cradle to grave approach to managing the effectiveness, safety, costs, maintenance, and use of medical equipment and systems. So the components, there is a planning component, as I described in the first slide, where we looked at the acquisition phase, planning for new and replacement medical equipment, operations, support, training, and infrastructure. That all needs to be included in the planning process. It's important to have accurate inputs, clear priorities, do a good analysis, and make excellent decisions at this phase. So there is, you have to do your research, due diligence at this phase to get good medical equipment, something that is sustainable and supportable. The management part of the phase is really focused on maintenance, performance, safety, education, and all the other costs that are associated with the technology. To do this, you need evidence-based decision-making from accurate medical equipment lifecycle data, which typically comes from your computerized medical equipment management system. That data is fed back into the planning process. Results, again, I'm not going to go through the entire list here, but basically cost effectiveness, less mistakes. Standardization is important in that it reduces costs, it reduces use errors, it allows faster maintenance if you have more standardized equipment. Maintenance management improves the availability of technology, which is kind of the bottom line in terms of maintenance. Replacement planning can be made on quantitative factors. Any regulations in the country or international standards will be better complied with. An important aspect is expanding the in-country support. With good medical equipment management programs, training, and support of the healthcare system results in expanded in-country support and drives the cost down and increases the readiness of the equipment support. So the next topic is medical equipment replacement. This is an area that I've been focusing on for a number of years. That's why it's got different colors here. So when do you replace equipment? These are the times when you don't want to replace it, when it fails at a critical time, when the physician returns from a conference and says the current technology is obsolete, when the department manager complains my equipment never works right at the capital budget meeting, or when undergoing repair, it's found that parts and support are no longer available. So you do not want to replace a medical equipment when it reaches this point. You want to have a plan. So that plan should use objective criteria, data from your computerized maintenance management system. It should cover the scope of the health system, and it should prioritize that replacement. So the factors important in replacement are maintenance. Do the manufacturers still support the product? Are the service costs advancing? Are the failures increasing? Is there poor documentation? On the safety side, are there unresolved safety issues, recalls that haven't been resolved, continuous user errors, lack of essential safety features? Otherwise, the equipment may not be standardized. If you get new equipment, it may reduce your expenditures. That's on the other side of the coin. High wear, obsolete, age, those are three factors that certainly have to be considered. And the new one is network connection. Today, many devices are being connected to the network. So you have to develop, look at that database and data and develop a report. So this is kind of continuing on in the process. This is all part of the acquisition, medical equipment acquisition, the iceberg. So the iceberg, I know they're all melting now, but this shows the acquisition costs above the water. Really can be a small part of the total life cycle cost of a technology. So the purchase price and the other factors that take place before the device gets put into service really could be a small part of the total cost. So don't always go on the cheapest purchase price for a product, because you have staffing, maintenance, consumables, upgrades, software licenses, compliance with regulations. Sometimes deinstallation is very expensive, such as X-ray systems. Disposal, for instance, cobalt radiation source is very expensive to dispose of. So there's a total ownership cost that goes well beyond the initial purchase. Acquisition, the important factors. First of all is needs assessment. Clinical, technical, infrastructure, operational, safety, and support. That all has to be looked at. Involved all stakeholders in the network. Clear, relevant specifications, competitive process, standardized common equipment, and again, the total cost of ownership. So these things all have to be taken into consideration in the acquisition of the products. Specifications may typically be part of the biomedical engineering department responsibility. Looking at the total cost of ownership may be something that is done by the biomedical department in conjunction with purchasing. But the main thing, the bottom line is before the purchase is the only time you have any leverage. So medical equipment deployment. This is the next stage after the equipment is purchased is to install the systems if they need to be installed. As part of that process, you need to monitor the performance of the vendor in doing that installation, the delivery, the training that needs to take place, the acceptance, and the final payment may come at a point when you're satisfied with the product. Acceptance testing, I'm not going to go into the details here, but you need to look at, have you received everything? Do you have all the documentation that's needed, accessories? Check the safety and performance asset documentation needs to take place. Training the users, ensuring that the installation works properly, properly under clinical conditions is important if you can do that before you make the final payment. Equipment safety. This is an important area, very important. Risk assessment needs to be made and that needs to be managed. One thing that should be known, medical equipment errors average about 10% globally for healthcare. We have a complex environment. There's a lot of obstacles for change within the healthcare system. Adverse events occur. We did a study of the FDA data for 2018. There was 600 adverse event reports, 600,000, I'm sorry, adverse event reports sent to the FDA in 2018 related specifically to medical devices. Recalls, today they're mostly software recalls. Use errors, you need to evaluate the usability at purchase, but also provide ongoing training. And don't forget the biomedical engineer and their safety. It's a lot of hazards out there. Maintenance goals and objectives. Maintenance is a big part of the management of technology. Maintain the highest level of availability of medical equipment to clinical users. Reduce the risk to patients. Continuously seek opportunities for quality improvement, cost reduction, comply with regulations and standards, and reduce the need for premature replacement of equipment. So this is kind of the mantra of maintenance goals and objectives. Maintenance, simply, I think because it's a large percentage of biomedical engineers, it includes physical inspection, safety performance testing, preventive maintenance, which is basically reducing device failure where non-durable parts are used, and there may be other tasks such as lubrication. Corrective maintenance and repair is basically returning the device to its original state, very simply. The last phase is decommissioning. And just one slide here from, there's a publication fairly recent from WHO called Decommissioning Medical Devices. Basically, if there's a disinvestment or there's a decommissioning decision made, then a determination needs to be made whether the device will be disposed of or reused. Either way, it first must be decontaminated before it goes out into another stream, either a use stream or a disposal stream. So there are reuse capabilities, refurbishing it, reprocessing or upgrading the technology. So it may have another use within the health system, but that technology in its current use would be taken out. Donation, sell, trade-in. So I just want to thank you all for being here for this presentation, and I'll sign off now and give it back to Francisco.
Thank you very much, Toby, for very good and interesting presentation. Sorry, Begonia, I took your place because Toby mentioned you. So I'm going to share my screen now. I'm going to talk a little bit about the community of practice. It's a Caribbean countries health technology planning and management community of practice. Analia mentioned it at the beginning of the presentation on the opening remarks. I'm going to make a brief presentation to let you know what is it and how can you join. So first of all, what is the Health Technology Planning and Management Community of Practice? It's a virtual space. It is hosted in PRICE. We'll talk a little bit later, but PRICE is the regional platform on access and innovation for health technologies. And it's coordinated by Professor Tobey Clark, which of course you know he was just presenting. And it has many things, but it's a forum for the discussion of health technology planning and management problems and practices and the exchange of information. This image you see here, it's the homepage. When you get there, you find the description of the community, and here are the options we'll now see in more detail. So what do we have in the community? As I was mentioning here, that's the homepage. You can have direct contact with the rest of the members of the community, so you can make questions, chat, ask about what's going on in their countries with specific topics, request them information. Also, there's an agenda for the future or coming events regarding the topic. Here on the agenda, it's today's webinar. It's registered there. And also, very important, a library where you can put resources. Well, the moderators put resources on the different topics to consult, and there are also other options like discussions for having specific topics for the discussion. So I'm going now to explain, as I was saying before, what is PRICE. So the community of practice is hosted in PRICE. PRICE is a regional platform on access and innovation for health technologies. Anybody can access. It's price.paho.org. You can join, and you will find there news, alerts, material developed by PAHO on health technologies, on medical devices, on medicines. Up to date, it updates every day. It's in English, in Spanish, and Portuguese. And here on the top, there's an option which says PRICE login, which will prompt you this window here, where you can register and log in. And once you log in, you can have access to the different communities of practice. But to actually get on the community of practice, you need to be invited by the moderator. So what we did here is, for all those that want to join, if you want to join the community of practice, what you can do is fill the registration form. You scan this code here, and a registration form will appear. Also, now my colleague Jasmine, which I will post on the chat, the link for this form, so you can go directly from there. Also, I'd like to thank Jasmine for helping me set up this, and also the Slido presentation I did before. And once you fill the form, in the form you will have to put your name, your email, very important, please, your email, your institution, your country. Those are the most important questions. We will be able to send you an invitation to join the community of practice. I don't know if we have it already. I'll leave it a couple more seconds there so you can scan it. Let me see if, okay, there, Jasmine already put it on the chat. So please go ahead, you can click there, or you can scan this code here. Well, this was just this brief presentation to invite everybody to join the community of practice. Now, Begonia, back to you.
Thank you, and apologies, I was having a problem with the battery of my laptop before. So now we enter to the session of questions and answers. So remember, everyone, that you can see at the bottom of your screen a section for where you can pose your questions for us, or you can also use the chat. We will be monitoring that. But I'm going to start with one of the questions that I received. This is for Professor Tobey Clark. Here they're telling us, how do you determine what is best maintenance source for medical equipment? If it is the manufacturer or independent service organization?
Thank you, Begonia. This is a common need, is to basically look for a medical equipment, especially systems. You're trying to determine what is the best maintenance source. So you have received, say, service contracts from the manufacturer, from a distributor, perhaps from a third-party organization for service. To look at that and all the aspects of that contract versus a in-house approach, which would be using your biomedical engineers and your healthcare system to support that technology. So the issues come down to training for your staff that are part of the healthcare system, the parts availability to maintain that technology, what the capabilities are of your staff in terms of skills. This, ends up primarily being a cost analysis, but also you want to look at what the response is and how quickly that you will be able to take a system that's broken and get it back to working condition. So that's just a brief summary, but I thought I'd provide that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We have more questions for you coming in now. The other one is if you could elaborate on the points regarding the unique factors in medical equipment assessment.
Yes, this medical equipment assessment is quite different. It can't really use the assessment approach that has been used in the past, because again, it was primarily focused on pharmaceuticals. Medical devices, many of them, and probably a high percentage, are used for diagnosis. So how do you assess the effectiveness of a medical device because it does diagnosis? It's quite different than looking at the therapy and see if a drug resolves a condition. The life cycle is different for technology. There's a lot of rapid change that takes place with technologies, and things such as ultrasound systems have a very short life. Others have longer life. There's a number of factors that have to be looked at. The other major one is training and usability of the technology. Over.
Thank you, Professor Clark. Francisco, we're also getting questions that are a little bit more practical, not technical, regarding the registration forms for the community of practice. Apparently, there seems to be a mistake in one of the fields, and they're not being able to enter email addresses. So if you could let us know when we handle this, if they should write an email to you, or how they could do that.
Yes, thank you, Begonia. Yeah, we were just noticing that, and it's apparently, I was just talking with Jasmine about that, and Jasmine is just informing the chat that please do refresh on the website, and it should be fixed. That. Thank you, and sorry for the problem. Thanks.
No worries at all. Professor Clark, another question that we have is, what common equipment should be standardized?
Yeah, that's a good question. The standardized equipment are things that are used throughout the hospital. Infusion pumps, for example, you use those in all the floors, the operating rooms, the emergency departments, throughout the hospital. The clinical staff may be going between those sites, say nursing working in an emergency room one day and then perhaps the operating room at another time frame. Those devices for operation should be standardized to reduce the number of user errors. But another important aspect is things such as consumables, tubing sets, for instance, for infusion pumps, repair parts, training for service is another area. There's many reasons for this common equipment. Other common equipment would be patient monitors, perhaps blood pressure machines. There's a variety. Any equipment that basically is used throughout the hospital is something that standardization should be considered over.
And well, I will jump in with a question that I have actually, now that we're talking about standards. What would be like good sources to go to when you're looking about standards for equipment? What would be the best options to start looking for those?
Okay, well, there's two answers to the question. Yeah, the standardization I was referring to would be like standardizing on a manufacturer and model for certain applications. In terms of standards such as ISO standards or IEC standards or international standards to look at, say, if devices qualify, there's really a new development that's very important. WHO has developed a program called MEDEVIS, which has an incredible amount of information, including, the standards which various device types need to comply with. And I know the PAHO team, Alexandre Lemgruber and his team, Alfonso Rosales and others have utilized that very effectively. Over.
Thank you very much for that. Maybe this next question will be more related also to Alexandre, to Francisco. So when we're talking about these needle questions on standards, on good practices, in this community of practice that we have, can we find these kind of references, or should we be like sending an email to our PAHO focal point, or what would be the best way to address when we come up with these kind of questions?
Sorry, I was having a bit of a problem with my mic and my camera. So for sure, the community of practice will be of use for that, for the participants to be there. If there is a need for having that type of standards of that type of usage, it can be pointed on the forums, on the questions, and well, Professor Clark will be moderating, and he will be able to provide a response and guide those that would need it there on the community of practice.
Perfect, good to know that. I'm not seeing any more questions. I don't know if you've received any directly, Francisco, but I think that would be it from our end.
Yes, I was also thinking maybe we could make an open question to the audience that would also be interesting regarding, maybe they could let us know, well, one of the questions that we were thinking at the beginning, what is the biggest challenge over medical equipment life cycle related to the areas covered in their countries? Maybe you can put some comments in the chat, or if you have any questions or comments about that, so we can have some information about that. It's an interesting topic always for us, at least, to know about that, and what areas would you all be more interested in receiving cooperation in. Please just make comments on the chat. You can also, okay, we have one there. Mark Julmis is commenting, I would like to learn more about environmental services. Often the how we clean the equipment causes more damage. Good comment.
I think that's a very good point, no? Especially sometimes with the weather casualties and other things that happen in the region, how we're learning, though, those are very big challenges in the region. And we also have another one regarding one of the main challenges being establishing a CMMS. Right. So please do not hesitate to put any of your challenges in the chat. But I think it would be time so that we can also keep on track to start with some closing remarks. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. I'm gonna give the floor to Alexander so that he can help us close up this first webinar. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Begonia, and not only for the moderation, which was great moderation, thank you very much, but also for your great help, support with the organization of the webinar and dissemination. So I think the level of participation, your support was crucial, essential for the participation and the dissemination of the webinar. So we're really thankful to all your help, Begonia. I would like also to thank my colleagues in the country offices. I see here in the list of participants several colleagues. I will not name all of them, but I just saw here Paul Edwards from Trinidad and Tobago, Edwin Bolasic from Belize, a few colleagues from the Haiti office, and I see here Felix and Dasaev in the list of participants. I'm sorry if I not mention everybody, but thank you very much for all your help as well in the country offices. And Analia mentioned in her opening remarks that besides the series of webinars, our plan is to have one per month until the end of the year at least. So we're going to send the invitations very soon, as we're going to define the next one. Will be probably this late August. And also we are organizing a series of workshops, and the workshops are virtual workshops. It's with selected countries, the countries that are expressing interest in developing this and organizing those workshops. We have, and Ali also mentioned, we have the first one a few days ago with our colleagues, and I see several colleagues from Trinidad and Tobago here in this, and I see Carlene, I see Paul Taylor here, and other colleagues from Trinidad and Tobago. We had the first workshop of Trinidad and Tobago a few days ago. It was very interesting, very productive, and our plan is to organize 2 workshops per country. So we're working with other colleagues, and so work with Edwin and other colleagues. We develop other activities in Haiti, for example, and Belize, and Guyana. And so if there is an interest for organizing these workshops, please contact our focal points in the countries, PAHO offices, and in each of the countries, and let them know that you would like to, you are interested in organize this workshop. So, and we are glad to organize this. So it's a project. Our priority for this year and is to identify the main needs, the main priorities to strengthening health technology management in the Caribbean. This is our priority, and we hope we can organize those activities, and then we can plan for the upcoming years. We have our working plan to work with you, because we identify that health technology management is a very important topic, and to work with the Caribbean countries. And we are very glad that we have this collaboration with the University of Vermont, and specifically with Professor Toby Clark, which is a great contributor for us. I will also thank you very much for the participants. We have around more than 70. We have like around 75 participants. So, and for your questions, for your participation. So thank you very much. I would like to also to thank Francisco, Cacavo, and all other colleagues in the team. I cannot name everybody, I'm sorry, because it was a great team. And thank you very much, Francisco, and all other colleagues that helped in this organization, Jasmine, Alfonso, Nilda, everybody that worked for the organization. And so I think we can wrap up. We passed, I think, 10 minutes of our time, but I think it was worth, and sorry for a small delay, little delay. And thank you very much, Toby Clark, Professor Toby Clark, for this wonderful presentation and all for this participation. We are looking forward for the next session. I wish you all a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. And we are going to be in contact and very frequently in the upcoming weeks and months. Thank you very much for your participation, and have a good day and weekend. Bye-bye.